Having said that, I'd like to send my um, condolences to the um, Lalonde family. The funeral, I believe, is on Saturday. So, with that, I'll hand the chair over to Mr. Councillor Tucky.
Thank you, Mayor Daniels. I'd first like to acknowledge our First Nations peoples. The Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge the town of Fort Smith is located within Treaty 8 territory. Treaty 8 territory also encompasses the traditional homelands of the Salt River First Nation, Smith Landing First Nation, and the indigenous Métis people of Fort Smith. These nations have maintained stewardship of the sacred lands throughout the generations. We honor your knowledge, teachings, traditions, and the land. We are mindful that colonization has not been kind. We respectfully recognize our generational histories and commit to strive for unity in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. First thing on the agenda is to accept the agenda is reviewed. I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I move that the agenda be adopted as presented. I'll second that.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Minutes of the Corporate Services Standing Committee, minutes of August 02, 2022 were reviewed and adopted at a regular meeting of council on August 24th, 2022. Ms. White.
I just want to confirm we actually did that because we didn't have corporate services or municipal services. Or community services or municipal services. Did I have corporate services? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you were approving minutes that actually happened.
Thank you. Vision and values. The vision and values were reviewed. Strategic plan. The strategic plan was reviewed. Governance, council priorities. Is there a discussion on it? Ms. White.
Sure, I can just give you a couple of quick updates in regards to infrastructure renewal. You'll see that, well, maybe you haven't seen, but they've started the paving on Primrose today. Bell Rock is ready to go. Once they're done the Primrose and Carl's Drive area, they're going to move over to Bell Rock while they complete some of the prep work in other parts of the community. As well as next week, you will be having a presentation from our engineering consultant with regards to the water infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure, above ground infrastructure that we put out to tender earlier this year for renewal of those facilities. In regards to economic growth, we are currently starting our housing study with NWT Housing. We're also working to find some additional funding to offset some costs. We've gotten $25,000 from ECE, but we're looking for some additional funding to do a labor market study for the community. Lands, we continue to work on our unsightly lands, and we'll talk some more about that later. Human resources, I believe that the executive secretary sent you a summary email the other day regards to human resources actions that are currently underway, and advocacy for excellence of services in the next over the next 2 days, or there will be opportunities for the public to engage with NTPC around the rate increases here in Chambers. As well, I know the mayor had some interactions with regards to NTPC with the Leadership Council and some college updates that he'll share with you at some point. So that's where some of those governance priorities sit right now.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any questions? Director's report, Ms. White.
Yes, thank you. The director is currently on annual leave, which is good because he doesn't take enough of it. So that we're starting to work on, as we said, talked about some of the budgeting things as well as bargaining, preparing to contact the union in regards to setting dates for bargaining for a collective agreement, which will be a big job to get ready for with our finance department. Otherwise, operations are essentially the same. We are still in the process of identifying candidates to interview for the pay and benefits officer position. Otherwise, all the same.
Thank you, Ms. White. Has everyone had a chance to go over the accounts paid list from August 2022? Any questions? Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, question here. Northern Waste Solution, remove hazardous waste material from the landfill. I thought we gave it to an outfit out of Yellowknife. Okay, okay. Okay, just,
Yes, thank you. That is the same. That is the same organization. I think it's just a different branch.
No further questions?
one more question. AAG Landscaping, replace fence at St. Isidore. Is that the quote, 25,200, 25,200?
Ms. White?
Yes. So there was some additional, it's near the bottom. There was some additional work around clearing some trees that was added. So originally the replacement of the fence was 20,000, and then there was an additional 5,200 added to replace or to remove some trees in the area to fire smart and clean it up a bit.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me?
Mayor Daniels?
Yes, just on that fence, is that the way it's going to be left, or are we filling it in?
Ms. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're actually exploring some options and talking about other cemeteries that we've seen around the country, and we'll probably do a little bit of a second rail on that fence, but we're also looking at the possibility of starting to put some hedging around it, so that it's a bit more closed in, but it's less institutional looking than the chain link fence. We would probably do the roadsides on hedges because we might need to expand some more, so we don't want to necessarily hedge the whole thing in. But along the roadway, along the two roadways, we'd probably be looking at doing some hedging. Although we have not explored those costs yet, so we'll have to wait and see.
Councillor Campbell?
When we make that decision on a cemetery, I think it's a big item in town. We should be going to the public and discuss this with them because a lot of them want the chain link fence back. They don't like the looks of this one. It's wide open. And let's just put it out to the public and see what they want instead of us deciding. Because this is not even the same design that we had that outfit give us some different fence looks, like some bigger poles and everything. But let's just put it back out to the public and see what they want. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Correspondence? Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you. With the correspondence, how do we know if they've been all answered? How do we know that? I thought we were looking for something on this kind of, when we're given the information, almost like a tech, like answered or replied or still outstanding kind of.
Took the question right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Ms. White,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I believe that we forgot to add that for this one. When council, just to be clear though, when communication comes addressed to mayor and council, we may respond that we've received it, but we do not provide responses until mayor and council give us direction to do so and which kind of response they would want. Normally the mayor would draft those responses.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be exact. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Like, yes, tick mark. We gave them the generic. We've received your email, and then other box whether or not they're still waiting for an official response from us.
Good suggestion. Councillor Campbell.
Our slope stabilization, what's happening? Are we having some engineering get back to us on all that or what?
Ms. White.
That's not in the correspondence, but yes, we should have a memo at the end of September. He's just in the field right now. So I've had a verbal meeting, but I want to wait till the memo comes.
Moving on to the license report from August 2022. Any questions? Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a suggestion, maybe with the Skidoo licenses as well, maybe talk to Luz and see if you can't get set up there like with the dog licenses at the pet store, because those are where the folks are going to buy their oil and their chains and their things, and maybe working with them, offering some sort of, come get your license, and while you pick up your oil, you might, get an uptake, because I can't believe there's no licenses issued for any off. This is none, or just for this month? There's none.
I don't think any were issued in this past winter.
Yeah, so maybe like that with the, putting the dog tags at the pet center, maybe at the Skidoo shop if they'd be willing to fill that out for you.
Ms. White.
I definitely think that's a great idea. I do want to point out that the community is not super awesome in regards to licensing their recreational vehicles. We have many side-by-sides and many ATVs in the community that are not licensed through the License Bureau. So that be GNWT license. Many of those. And so it's not surprising the uptake on Skidoo licenses is very low. Oh, and also many people riding dirt bikes through the community, unlicensed, underage. Same thing with ATVs and side-by-sides. You have to be 16 to operate a motor vehicle of any kind on the roadway.
Thank you, Ms. White. Councillor Bolio.
Talking about licensing and stuff and ATVs and snow machines and that, a lot of them don't get them registered because they go through A&R. They can get stickers for the year they're using them for the trap lines. That's why they don't get the license.
Councillor Campbell.
So if we have to get the license, the people must have it to insure them. So we have to start stopping them on the roadways, because there's getting more and more people in the evening driving around the rec center with side-by-sides and things. So by law, or we have to ask the RCMP to enforce it a bit more. Somebody's going to get hurt one of these days with these kids underage driving those things, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. We got to, I don't know what to do. It's hard. RCMP have to step up a bit and enforce it, and maybe our people have to jump in too.
Ms. White.
I'll just say from my experience in a previous life, Skidoos and ATVs, not necessarily side by sides, but quads, and dirt bikes are extremely challenging to enforce because as soon as somebody starts following them with lights on, they cut across properties and go to places where the motor vehicle can't, and it's very, very challenging to enforce. But I believe Councillor Campbell is very correct. You know, not only are they kids or adults, but also young people who don't have driving experience, driving around in the community on recreational vehicles. They're not wearing helmets, and so until somebody has a significant accident as a result, the community will maybe not change their ways, but I hope that's not what we need to have happen in order for people to make changes to their behaviors.
Councillor Bolio.
Yeah, can we find out if we still have a curfew? I remember we still, I think it was a couple of years ago, we had that 11 o'clock curfew for all off-road machines. I know maybe if we ask, because it's a school year, if we can drop that down to, say, 8:30, 9 o'clock, would it work?
Councillor Ferguson.
I like what you're going with and trying to prevent, people from going out after they shouldn't be. But lots of kids use these to get to work or they're coming back from a sporting event. Not all of them are what we see are the folks that we want. Are not all the ones that are causing the problems. There are other folks that are riding down roads and riding inappropriately and riding without helmets. Yes, we want those, but I don't think we should punish everyone who is in the ditches or using the trails and wearing the helmets and not driving recklessly.
Ms. White.
And as well, the RCMP will not enforce a curfew bylaw, and we don't. That is an incredibly challenging bylaw to enforce. Incredibly challenging. We would need more than one additional bylaw officer to make that work, and we won't get support from the RCMP to enforce a bylaw. They've made that clear to me.
So how did this fall in our lap? Shouldn't this be at motor vehicles? Like, how did it fall in the town's lap?
Councillor Ferguson.
We were just talking about Skidoos not being licensed. And it is, I don't know why if it's GNWT registration, or I know when I have to register, or I've had to have insurance first before I can register. So is that what people want to have? Is the government wants us to be insured in order for us to ride? Maybe not for Skidoos, but for side-by-side, dirt bikes, quads, you do. Especially if you want to be on the roads. If you want to just be on trails, because we don't have a licensed organization here that's taking on that kind of association like you would in Alberta. Alberta, you have to have a license and be registered with an Alberta organization and insurance before you can ride. So I guess I'll just follow up. If anyone wants to start an association here, you guys should.
Mayor Daniels.
But I think we should also talk to the RCMP here, because there is a problem here. When people are riding around, racing down the roads at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're trying to get some sleep, there needs to be some kind of enforcement there. I think this is probably where the police could take a role in it. It's a thing that we could discuss with them. Because there's many times I know in the frontier that people are racing around, and probably by that new subdivision also. So, it's something that we should take a look at.
Councillor Campbell.
It's not just 4 o'clock in the morning, it's all hours of the day. And just have the RCMP do some patrols, let them know that we're out there and checking. We got to, somebody's going to get hurt bad before we do anything about it.
Councillor Ferguson.
I know for noisiness, I find that it's the vehicles too on shift change at midnight, people getting off from work and starting their vehicles, whatever that's really bad too. I hear like the loud vehicles.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll move on to bylaw policy review and development. Briefing note, Ms. White?
Sorry, apologies. This should actually be under administration. So we have a briefing note for a home occupation development from Owen McDonald for the operation of Falcon Aerial Imaging at the following location: 1841, lot 1841, plan 4750, civic address 132 Field Street. Property is zoned R2, and a home occupation business is a conditional use in this zone requiring council approval. The application indicates that this is office space to support the business. There'll be no additional foot or vehicle traffic to the residents. The neighborhood will not be impacted by additional noise. No signage will be installed. No alterations or construction will take place. The applicant has been notified of the requirements to comply with all of the appropriate bylaws, building code, fire code, and federal and territorial regulations. So that would include I'm not sure if it's, sorry, I can't remember if it's drone or actual flight, because he is a pilot. So that would include flying around a airport. The recommendations, the applicant be granted a development permit to operate a home occupation business at the address indicated, subject to compliance requirements outlined in the development permit.
I'll move that Owen McDonald be granted development permit to operate the home occupation business Falcon Aerial Imaging located at lot 1841, plan 4750, 132 Field Street, indicated subject to compliance requirements outlined in the developmental permit.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Councillor Campbell.
I'm in favor of this, but all these home businesses that get a license, after a while, their yard starts to fill up and looks like a junkyard right away. Some of them haven't even been approved for a year, and their yards are filling up with material, extra vehicles, and everything. And everybody, when they apply, say they're going to follow all the zoning bylaws and everything, and none of them seem to be doing. So we have to make sure we're enforcing our bylaws and saying you're not increasing the traffic or your footprint of your vehicles around the yard and everything. Thank you.
Ms. White?
I thank Councillor Campbell for those comments. Part of the unsightly lands work that we've been doing has been related to some of these businesses, as well as how they are impacting the zoning bylaw. So that's the things around having extra equipment and materials in the yard. So some of those have been identified and asked to remediate in the recent months over the summer.
Thank you, Ms. White. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Councilor Campbell? Motion passed unanimously. Administration, Ms. White.
We have a number of things that should be dealt with in camera as per section 23 E of the CTV Act. So relating to matters still under consideration, which council has not yet publicly announced the decision, if discussion in public would likely prejudice the municipal corporation's ability to carry out its activities or negotiations. So I would request that we go in camera for the remainder of the meeting.
Can I have a motion put on the floor, please?
I move that we go in camera as per section 23, 3E of the CTV Act. Matter still under consideration.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Motion carried unanimously.